Awesome. So welcome everybody to Sisterhood of the Dreaded Elevator Pitch. I'm very happy to be here with you all. My name is Claire Wheeler. I'm the Director of Inclusive Entrepreneurship at Mercy Connections. We're one of the partner organizations that put this event together, along with Vermont Works for Women, CVOEO, and the Center for Women in Enterprise. And this is an online version of an in-person workshop that we did last winter. I think it was in mid-December. So what feels like just a few months ago, but was, yeah, a whole half year ago. This really came about as a conversation around the fact that, yeah, having to say what you do for a living, especially when you're self-employed, but even when you're traditionally employed and have an actual job description, can be a really difficult thing. And so we wanted to put something together that hopefully is useful, hopefully is accessible, that gives you the tools that you might need to talk about the work that you do in a meaningful way in different contexts. So that's the goal of the meeting, the training today. And really we'll just be walking you through a little bit of a rubric to help you kind of piece together your own solution, your own elevator pitch. Does that sound good? Hopefully that's what everybody's expecting. Awesome, great. So I think without further ado, I'm going to do one thing where actually, Sophia, I don't know if you could upload do you know how to upload the handout to the chat? If not, that's something I can do.
I don't believe I received the handout. Let me
All right, then that's on me. Then let me put the handout in the chat.
Sorry about that.
So just to make sure folks know, it's totally fine. Just so folks have it. Yes. I'm gonna put this here. It's a PDF that's fillable. You should be able to download it. Once I find it and put it in there. I guess it doesn't want me to drag it. Huh. All right. It's not liking this, but we'll figure out a way to get this to you. Maybe I'll email it to you, Sophia, and we can see if we ever. Are you all seeing my email? No.
No.
Okay, good.
I can send it after the fact if you'd like.
Yeah, we can send it after the fact as well. I'll just shoot this over to you in case it works out this way. Sorry, friends. I usually have multiple screens and I'm working from home today, which is the best, but it also means that technologically limited. Okay, cool. All right, so back to it. So we did a little bit of introductions already. If anybody would like to add to the chat, anything in particular that you're interested in getting out of this workshop, we're just a tight group. But also, if you do have a business or a role with with an organization or a company, it'd be great just to know a little bit about who you are so that we can, I don't know, work with that a little bit more in this workshop. So take a second just to introduce yourself in the chat. It'd be great to know who you are, where you're coming from, what your role is as best you can describe it. I feel like it changes every day for me, but we'll revisit that in just a second once folks have a chance to enter that. I think, Sophia, we could probably just skip the poll and get to know each other a little bit this way, if that seems okay to you, since we're.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I'll try to upload that file. I just received your email.
Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't letting me just drag it or pull in anything from my computer. So maybe you'll have better luck. Thank you for that. Awesome. So we have one participant who's here in kind of the health field, which is really, really cool, working to connect patients being able to communicate more effectively with their doctors. That's really wonderful. Thank you for doing that work. That's so great. And some book publishing going on, which is really cool. and somebody who does resource coordination with employees at workplaces. Wonderful. So thank you for being here. Thank you for telling us a little bit about the work that you do. You all have done a great job of explaining your work in the chat. And so we hope to just kind of keep working with what you've got going on and come up with some new ways of talking about the work that we do. So you all have probably heard about an elevator pitch before, right? The traditional sort of like stuffy business concept of an elevator pitch is that you find yourself in an elevator, there's a fancy investor in the elevator with you, and you have the amount of time from, you know, going to floor 21 to the ground floor to pitch your business idea to the investor and get them so excited that they want to know more before the elevator doors open, right? So that's unrealistic for most of us. I don't think most of us will, first of all, there's not a lot of elevators in Vermont, but secondly, we're not necessarily in that kind of scenario very often, but we are in scenarios where we do sort of need efficient and effective ways to communicate who we are and what we do. As somebody who's formerly self-employed, I often found this to be most difficult when I had made up my own job, because it was just, I almost had too much information and too many ways of talking about it to do it succinctly and to make it make sense to anybody else, right? But as we were talking about earlier, even when you have a job description or you have a title, it can be challenging. More than anything else, we're going to bag kind of the traditional version of an elevator pitch or purpose of an elevator pitch. Really, this is just an opportunity to allow you to speak authentically about what you do, to make new connections that are going to be useful for you in your work, to be in control of your own narrative, right? So even better than a job description that somebody else wrote for you. And really ultimately to answer the question, so what do you do? What is it that you do? Which when I was self-employed for 7 years, my mother would ask me at every occasion, because she just didn't understand what it is that I did, right? So ideally we walk away with more tools at the end of this hour with abilities to answer that last question. And we call this the sisterhood of the dreaded elevator pitch because doing this kind of thing can be really, really challenging. And so I wanted to just take a second and, you know, no pressure to share, but just to kind of open it up. How, you know, let's talk about the reality of networking and having to kind of advocate for ourselves and talk about what we do clearly. Like, what about that can be challenging for folks? So you're welcome to enter some ideas into the chat or just come off mute and share. Why in your experience, why would you say that doing this sort of thing can be somewhat dreadful occasionally?
I'm an introvert.
Yeah. Boom. Yeah, drop the mic. That's all you need to say. Totally. And we live in a very extroverted world, right? Where everybody's expecting, yeah, that level of energy and response and kind of quick turnaround time. So yeah, introverts.
It's also tough because, like, you know what's interesting to you about whatever it is that you're trying to pitch, but you don't necessarily know what people find interesting. So I find that I have an elevator pitch in mind, and then when I start to talk about it, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if this is actually right. So I start rambling until I think I hit something that someone's interested in. And by that point, I'm just like, never mind. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Totally right. Remembering that, and I think that's a really great point, that the traditional concept of an elevator pitch is very one-dimensional, one-directional, right? Which isn't necessarily good communication. And I would also go as far to say that it's also not the way that, especially folks who've been socialized as women, are best at communicating, or it's just not how we do things. We're much more relational than that, right? Great point. But then it can become a problem when you're trying to figure out where to go from there. Yeah. Any other thoughts on kind of what makes this tricky at times?
I have had a career that before my company, I worked as a user experience designer, and I still do that work. And I find that a certain group of people, especially my parents and their friends, just have no clue what that is. And it doesn't matter how many times I explain, or it's like they have a mental block about it. So it can be hard to explain what you do to certain people who maybe like have less technology comfort or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so, right, whether it's because you're working in a kind of newer industry, or like the concept of the role is new, and I think this is especially true when you're running your own company, like you've, like I said before, created the job for yourself, created the thing from scratch. how do you translate that into language that works for other people? Yeah, great point.
I think there's so much diversity in kind of what's out there now. It used to be, you were a farmer or you were a teacher or you were a businessman. And if you're a businessman, well, you were selling product A, B, or C.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there are so many niche markets out there,
Yeah.
and industries that can lead to.
Totally. I think you're so right. We're innovating. Things are changing. We're needing to do things differently. And so, yeah, that's just going to make this level of communication that much harder. Yeah, great point. All right, I stopped sharing my screen to try to solve this chat upload document issue, and it's just really not
Also
wanting
been
to
doing
work.
that behind the scenes.
You're having a hard time too.
No luck, yeah.
I know, it's letting me choose everything except for upload something from my computer.
Right.
I'm wondering if folks could just throw their, I know we have this from registration, it might be just be easiest if folks could throw their emails in the chat, then we can just email it to you, and it just might be a helpful resource to be looking at as we move through the kind of the rubric, but that would be super helpful. Thank you all. And I'll get back to sharing my screen. So as is in my mind, sort of, when we're kind of doing a feminist version of anything, just to kind of put it out there, which is what I try to do all the time, we always kind of have to remember, like, what about this thing has been sort of, I don't know, just ruined by the patriarchy, right? Like, what about like elevator pitches has become so kind of out of touch or out of reach that that doesn't, that we want to just acknowledge and kind of throw away so that we can start to do things differently and do it in our own way, in ways that work, right? So thank you for going through that quick kind of analysis of like, what doesn't work about things I've tried before. And now knowing that, we can move forward with trying to create something that just feels a little more genuine into how we are and who we are. So I think a few things that help us sort of not dread it is, coming to something like this and just thinking about it, giving it some attention and time, especially doing it a little bit in community with others, to know your intention, right? To be clear about what you want your elevator pitch to accomplish or do. And that being said, it's really valid that your elevator pitch is actually going to have to shift and change to kind of meet the moment, and that's okay. If it's more helpful for you to kind of stick with one and roll with it, that's okay as well. Like that, do what works for you first and foremost. But it's also all right if you maybe adjust it a little bit for different contexts, and prepare, kind of re-prepare your elevator pitch with points that are specifically kind of, and language that's specifically designed for the audience in mind or the context in mind. I'm thinking about the family members trying to understand what it is that you do, right? So it's like, if you're at a UX conference, that might be one thing. And then if you're like at the kitchen table with your family, you might need to, change the language a bit. I think it's also really important just to make sure that the thing you're about to do this for is actually worth it. And I say that because, especially in business, business networking is huge. It's a really important thing that we all do. Personally, though, if I'm really out of my element, if I'm really uncomfortable, if I'm with people that I don't feel genuinely myself or safe around, whatever the case may be, I don't want the leads that I'm trying to get, or I don't want the, they're not my folks, right? And I think that that's really okay. I think there's enough opportunities out there, enough people out there to actually, be discerning, to find who are the networks, groups, environments that you feel really good in, that uplift you and include you, and to ditch the stuff that doesn't work for you. So part of not dreading it is just you getting to be selective and prioritize the spaces you want to be in. Kind of knowing your audience, anticipating who's going to be there, and like we already talked about, just tweaking it to make sense for them. Also knowing your offer. So there's knowing your intention, sort of what are you hoping to get? And then it's also really helpful to be thinking like, is there something I can offer in exchange for reciprocity? And also, as somebody already mentioned, making sure I'm sort of keeping a person engaged because there's something in this for them as well, rather than trying to find out where they are and losing them a little bit or fearing losing them. So is there something you can offer? I mean, sometimes sometimes a conversation is an offer. Sometimes a business card is an offer, right? If sort of packaged in the proper way, or maybe you can offer to take them out for coffee and learn more about what they do, right? So, and then offers can get much more formal from there, but know what it is that you're willing to kind of offer to sort of make the connection happen. Then you want to think about putting your pitch together. And I think it is helpful to actually, you know, for some of us, maybe not all of us, but to like write it down and get familiar with it. Just prepare a bit. Refine for authenticity. Make sure that it's doesn't seem weird to say out loud. Practice in the mirror, pitch to your cat, whatever it takes to kind of like see if it's awkward. Many times what we write is very awkward to read. So, you know, you want to write it down first and then actually like say it out loud, see how it sounds, and change that to be a little bit more casual, a little bit more conversational. And then practicing, right? And that both means maybe saying it out loud in the mirror or to your cat, or just kind of getting out there and trying it out and seeing how it works, right? So there isn't a surefire way to make sure that, you know, you nail it every time until you get to practice it and learn from mistakes as well. So there's lots of different kind of opportunities or gatherings where you may need one of these pitches. And I just wanted to name a few of them, and they're in all different shapes and sizes, right? So there's like the traditional networking groups and gatherings that happen for small business owners or for, you know, nonprofit partners, whatever the case may be. That's perhaps the most typical. But the reality is we're doing networking anywhere that we are, right? Whether it's our kids' soccer game or at the gym, like something might come up where it's a really good connection for you in your role or your business. And it's really helpful to have this handy when that opportunity arises. It may also be really handy on social media when you're making posts about yourself or about something going on with your business to be able to kind of effectively and succinctly state who you are. So at the top of the, I'm not sure if we've gotten the handout by now, but you'll see at the top of the handout, there's an opportunity just to kind of check in with the intention that you might have when working with this. And you can, you know, save this handout and use it to create multiple variations of your elevator pitch. For now, just kind of consider what might be most useful for you in terms of just kind of practicing and working with this a little bit this afternoon. Is it, you know, are you needing to work on this in order to make a business connection, in order to just build up a network of business colleagues, in order to secure an investment, like whatever the kind of level of pitches the intention is, will help you and help inform the tone and the structuring of it. So take a second just to kind of think about what was most valuable for you in terms of why, and then we're essentially just going to walk through this structure. Do folks have the handout handy? Did that arrive? Hopefully. Ginny's not seeing it yet. Sophia, were you able to send it out?
So unfortunately, my Wi-Fi kicked me out when
Fun.
I was supposed to get all the emails, and then
Yeah.
the chat doesn't populate them. But I'll send it out in just a second.
Okay, great. So you have the emails now. Okay, great. So it is coming at you, and you'll see very soon that essentially these slides are just going to match the content in the handout. So we essentially have created what I hope is a simplified version of a kind of a template or a rubric that's going to help you write your elevator pitch with 5 main components. And I personally believe that if your elevator pitch can touch on these 5 things, you're saying all the things that you need to say. Now there's options within each of them. So let's just walk through them a little bit. And if it's helpful for you, I encourage you to kind of jot down notes or even statements, you know, to help answer this question for you and your elevator pitch, so that as we're walking through these, you walk away with something that is at least a draft of what you can use. So the first thing I want you to think about is kind of who are you professionally? And remember that this is who you are professionally, sort of in the context and with the goal that you have in mind. So this may change depending on the context and the goal. Who you are professionally, depending on your audience, depending on your context, this may include your role, your title. If you're a business owner and you don't have a title yet, this is a cool opportunity to invent a title that feels really authentic to you. It also, though, could include a tiny little bit of your backstory around what led you to this role or what inspires you to be in this role. If it's useful because you're at a, you know, stuffy academic gathering, you might want to throw some credentials or letters that you've earned at the end of your name. But also you might include some contextual connections, right? Who I am professionally, if I'm talking to, you know, George over there may be really relevant, that who I am professionally is that I work with George's cousin, right? So you may want to kind of be thinking about, like, you know, who are you connected to in the context that you're planning this for? So in my example, by the way, I built my example elevator pitch based on a business, Marie Tomei's business, Green Vision Cleansing. She does house cleaning in the Chittenden County area. So thank you to her for being the inspiration for this. I could answer this question really simply with a simple sentence that says, I'm Claire Wheeler. I'm a professional cleaner and the founder of Crystal Clear Cleaning LLC, which is hard to say altogether. Good to know. But you know, I'm both am a cleaner and I also am the founder of a business. Those are the two most important things for me to say here. So you'll see on the handout that you have an opportunity to answer your who, at least in this, you know, with this example, with whatever context that you've chosen. So sometimes knowing who we are and saying who we are can be the hardest part, but I encourage you to just kind of run with something really simple. Again, you know, my example names my name, kind of how I identify in my role, and the most important things about my role. Not only am I a business owner, but I also provide cleaning services myself. The next piece that I think could be really helpful is the what, and this is the what does your business do? What is your business? Maybe you've named it in the previous who, but you haven't named really what it does. Or again, if you're doing this just professionally and you aren't a business owner, you might want to talk about a little bit more details about either what your organization does or what your role is really all about, the services or, you know, that you provide. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, this could include a very mini service product description. This could include the business name, if you haven't mentioned that already, and the type of business that it is. You know, we're a retail or a wholesaler that sells, you know, artwork to boutique retail stores in Burlington, whatever, you know, whatever kind of like short business description you can put in. It may also be helpful to name your target customer here if you're a business owner, because that can be that's a really key piece of your business model and may be really relevant to who you're talking to, especially if they are a target customer or can connect you with target customers, right? So my answer is that my business provides residential cleaning services at an affordable price for busy professionals and families, right? So I was able to work in a couple things, the services that my business offers, who it's for, but also a little bit of the value proposition of my business as well, right? Like, it's at an affordable price. I'm trying to stand out in this particular way. And that may be alluring for the folks that I'm talking to. So think a little bit about the what. You've got the who are you, but then there's the what, the kind of crux of what it is you offer, what it is you do. Again, trying to be succinct and short. The third piece is the how, and this is where things start to get a little more interesting. How is what you do unique and sparkly? How is what you do different from what others do? And I think many of you already accomplished this just in your intro in the chat. Like, it's in my mind, this is the most interesting thing. Sometimes we just have to wade through the, you know, obligatory kind of introductory information in order to get to this piece, but this is what folks start to become really interested in. So some of the points to think about here: differentiation. Again, what sets you apart from what people might think about when they think about, in my case, you know, residential cleaners. You might integrate more of your unique selling proposition here. So again, what sets you apart from the competition? What makes you different? You may also be thinking in terms of features and benefits. If you're a business owner, what are the features of your products? And then so what do those do for your customers? What are the benefits that the products or services you're selling offer? You can also think about this just as your special sauce. Like, this could be a little bit about who you are, you know, I'm thinking like, maybe what makes me different is that this isn't true, but like used to be a circus performer. And that's something I like to throw into my elevator pitch because people are going to remember that, right? It has nothing to do with running a clean company, but it's unique and sparkly and it's going to stick in people's mind. There's stickiness to it. So this is not that I didn't include that in this example, but I could say something for my cleaning company. Like, I actually make my own cleaning products. So that's totally unique and different. And I also do that using high quality essential oils. So they're highly effective and also totally safe, non-toxic for humans, animals, and surfaces alike, right? So not only do I just do the thing that I said I did, and you think of a million other people who do that, but I do it in a really unique way. in a way that maybe you're going to remember because you care about not chemicals, you know? So think about which piece of information do you want to select about your uniqueness or your sparkliness to insert into this pitch. And this also might be hard to answer for yourself. I think this can be where asking people, loved ones, people who know you for feedback can be also uncomfortable for some of us, but really, really helpful, right? Like why I'm special, right? Sometimes it's really helpful to get a third party to answer the question for you because it can be really difficult to either see that in ourselves or own it. But if you know it, go for it because you got it. If you know what makes you unique, totally, this is your chance to shine. So the fourth component, so we've done who, we've done what, we've done how. This is the why, and this also starts to get really really meaningful for people. There's I don't have an image of it in the slides, but Simon Sinek is a marketing guy. He writes books on marketing and does talks, and he has I believe he has a TED talk that talks about his model of the golden circle, and it's essentially a three-ring concentric circle. And he says that for any company, they should be able to complete this exercise. The outer ring is what does your company do? So this is built on this a little bit. What are the products, services, whatever the thing may be? How is the next ring in? How is it different, right? And then why is at the center, and that's the golden circle. And his thing is, every company in the world can say what they do and how they do it. But the thing that actually matters for humans is why they do what they do. And companies in general aren't very good at naming the why. But if we can name the why more, then the rest is kind of like essential information, but the why is what really resonates. So it can be challenging to identify the why, but you also have many options here. You can talk about sort of your passion for this work, what got you into it, why you believe in your business. A little bit of the origin story of the business can come in here again. The problem and solution, right? What problem are your customers facing, and how do you solve that problem for them? Also, a little bit about your organizational or business philosophy can come in handy here. So, thinking about in terms of mission, vision, values, are there specific motivations or values that are driving you to do this work? So for my cleaning company, I could say that, and this is a nice dovetail from the previous sentence, right? Keeping spaces safe and sanitized without chemicals that are harmful for the people on the planet. Like, that's what I care about. Like, I think, yeah, there's absolutely no reason, I could say this in a more sort of conversational way and say, there's absolutely no reason why we need to be using toxic chemicals to clean houses, right? So something like that would get somebody's attention. Hopefully they would agree with me and we start building rapport. So one sentence about the why, and the more personal you make it, I would say the more compelling it is, the more like kind of heart-centered or values-based you can make it, the more compelling it is. This is what changes sort of, snoozy, like elevator pitch that doesn't quite gather, just doesn't get anybody's attention and isn't about anything relevant. It switches from that to something that's incredibly relevant because we have an opportunity to connect as human beings about things that matter to us, which is really ultimately, let's be honest, the only thing that we really care about, right? Is that we're human beings in this room together with feelings and ideas and passions. And can we have a conversation at that level instead of me just telling you all the things I've accomplished, right? So think a little bit about what your why could be, and maybe more than any of the others, try to really drill this down. Try to kind of, there's another exercise that came out of Toyota and their lean product management sort of philosophy that's called the 5 whys. And I'm not a parent, but I understand that anybody who has parented a toddler is excellent in this exercise. The idea is that you start with an answer to a problem or an answer to the question why, and then you actually ask why 5 more times. Well, why is that the case? And why does that happen? And why is that the case? And the idea is every time you kind of go down the elevator of whys, you get to, at the end of 5 whys, a very root cause explanation of what's happening or why this matters. And so I encourage you to try to even just, theoretically or without going through the exercise, almost envision yourself kind of dropping down, like, why do I care to do this, right? It could be a personal connection to the business, something that happened in your life that drove you to, create the solution, or it could be, a cause or an issue that you really care about. And like I said, my example here is a really nice written statement, but if I were just putting together a verbal elevator pitch, I would say something a lot more, just a lot more casual and easy, right? Like, again, that idea of like, there's just absolutely no reason why we need to be using toxic chemicals to clean our spaces, something like that. Okay, so that's the why. And then the last piece, we're going to look at this, and then I'm going to encourage you to think about your answers to these questions without, challenge by choice, no pressure. The last piece is kind of a call to action, or something that brings us from me talking about myself to engaging a little bit more in the conversation at hand. So up in the left-hand corner, this could be a direct ask. Amy, you were bringing up the point about like not knowing how to gauge, like if you've got the person or what they care about, right? Like like a call to action can simply be a question about what they think about the thing, or about, what do you do, or what, so I think a question is a really great way to think about a call to action. It doesn't have to be like, please sign this petition right now, or please give me $100,000, right? It's just an invitation to engage in a more two-dimensional way. You could invite them to a follow-up conversation. You can invite them to, buy their coffee. You could invite them to share with you what their why is, right? That's a really beautiful call to action. You could share your business card. Ignore the fact that, ignore the fact that I forgot to delete "Are you professionally?" Sorry about that. So just the call to action. So mine, my pitch is all about the fact that I have this business, but I'm also trying to launch this product line. So it leads me to say, my all-purpose cleaner is now for sale. Please take this sample and my business card. I'd love to know how you like it, right? So not only am I promoting my product, but I'm also trying to kind of get feedback and build some buzz by giving out free samples of my non-toxic, very safe, deliciously smelling essential oil cleaner, which Marie is also trying to do with her business, which is really neat. So there's a lot of different examples of what your call to action can look like. Again, and this particularly is going to shift in with your context. You might just find a question that feels really good that you like to ask everybody, and you're going to stick to that as your way of engaging them, right? Or there might be really specific needs you have in different contexts. So that's the idea. And then you can kind of stitch it all together, right? So this is a version of all the 5 sentences just kind of stitched together. I would say that at this point, this is a great written elevator pitch, but I probably, if I were to memorize this and read it out, I would sound like ChatGPT. So I don't want to sound like ChatGPT. I'm going to then try to fine tune this to make it sound more conversational. But I've got all 5 components in there. I also want to say that it does not need to go in this 1 through 5 kind of format the way we just went through it. So here's a version of the elevator pitch where I've mixed up the sentences and it still works really well, right? So I'm starting with kind of the why. We can keep things clean without using chemicals that are harmful for people on the planet, or that idea of like, there's absolutely no reason why we need to be using toxic chemicals to clean our surfaces. I'm Claire, I make my own products. I do, I started my company. We provide these services. Please take a sample. I could create a different pitch that mix and matches even the last sentence on top. Please take my sample on my business card. I'd love to know what you think. I created this product because blah, 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 blah. I'm Claire, please be in touch. So the key is having answers to the 5 parts, but then being able to actually kind of mix and match and try out different orders to see what feels most genuine to you. So with that, I want to stop and see if there are any questions. Again, this isn't anything you haven't done before. It's just a way to hopefully organize your thoughts in a simple way, I'm hoping, so that it doesn't feel so dreadful to have to say the thing, right? So again, this isn't anything new. It's just kind of it's a format more than anything else. Questions, comments, things that this is bringing up for folks? Anybody would like to share or bring up? Hey, if there are none, I would love to just give you a moment to think about it and maybe take a minute to try to answer the questions for yourself. Maybe you were jotting down ideas as we were walking through them. But I'd love to just take 5 quiet minutes for you. This is the kind of thing, by the way, that you might be different than me, but if somebody doesn't give me time and force me to do, I'll be like, yeah, I'll do it later, it'll be great. And then like 5 years later, I still won't have an elevator pitch. So I'm gonna challenge you to at least kind of, gather your thoughts, write things down. We have time now so that you walk away with a little bit more of something than you came in with. And then there'll be an opportunity to tell us how it went or share it if you want to, but no pressure to share. So take a few quiet minutes now. Do folks have the handout? Does anybody need it? Did it come through email? Yes. Okay. I'm seeing Virginia not. Okay, great. So, yeah, we'll just take a kind of a quiet moment. Hopefully you can type right into the PDF or just jot down notes on your own. And if you want to write full sentences, that's great. If you want this just to be even an inventory of the potential things you could say in each category, that's super helpful, because then you have kind of like a CliffsNotes cheat sheet that you can use to develop elevator pitches for specific purposes. So whatever works for you, just answer these questions for yourself. So how's it going, folks? Is this, we can kind of just chat about it. If you want to share what you've come up with, that's totally, you're welcome to. And I also don't want to be more ambitious than Friday afternoon wants us to be. Are you finding some new things to say? Is it helpful to kind of think about the different components and how to arrange them? What's coming up for folks?
Yeah, it's helpful. I was writing a little bit as you were talking before. Do you mind if I do mine?
Oh my gosh, I would love that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm Katie McCurdy. I'm an autoimmune patient, designer, and founder of Pictal Health. We help people with complex health histories create a visual timeline of their health journey so they can communicate better with their doctors. We believe patients are the best experts when it comes to their own story. And so with Pictal, instead of having to repeat their story over and over, they can show it, and their clinicians can take it at a glance instead of digging through notes or listening to a long rambling story. So our vision is for patients to be heard, seen, and believed, for clinicians to make the best informed decisions, and to reduce medical errors, misdiagnoses, and burnout along the way. I don't have like a next step, but yeah, ideally
Katie.
it's like, go to our website.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Well, and that's,
yeah.
I mean, to your point, that's the thing that's sort of most mutable depending on whatever the thing is that you're trying to do. So I love that, like, it's like a fill in the blank at the end. That was so good. I am also in love with what you're doing, and
Thank you.
can't, you know, it's one of these things. It's like I can't believe that's just not a part of. Yeah, I'm glad it's
Yeah,
not, because it's such a beautiful business
thank
for you to run. But what a beautiful, important service that you do.
Thank you. People
Yeah, and
react that way, even to, it's funny, I was at a networking event last night and I just said the first part of that, like the first sentence or two, and people like react right away. So
yeah,
I think it's okay, but I say it different. I don't have a real template.
yeah,
So I wanted to just like, I know there's more that I want to communicate about it. So
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just a couple things I noticed. I loved the order in which you identified yourself as what I can't remember exactly what you said, but as a patient, you know, first and
Yeah.
foremost, just feels so
Yeah.
important. So I think that's super strong and compelling. And I mean, I would encourage you to just to try the mix and match thing, you know, like
Yeah.
I think all of it all sounded so good, and I could imagine like the vision you know, it's like they all can kind of play together. So I would keep just I'm almost imagining like post-it notes, you know, like one
Mhm.
sentence or concept per note, and just like kind of swap them around until they like, you know, they line up in
It
a way that
feels
feels
right.
really good. But that one, like, it
Yeah.
could be exactly what you just delivered. I think that was excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And including the vision, I think including the company vision is really smart. It's, you know, it does make it a little bit longer, but you have such a compelling solution to a problem that people already feel, that I think you get it. I'm sure you capture people's attention right away. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice work. Thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So other questions or shares or what, you know, or just things, anything coming up for anybody kind of working on this, or, you know, things you're noticing?
If you're trying to make a pitch that's a little bit less surrounding trying to get buy-in to a business and more trying to get personal bias into a specific product,
Mhm.
is there something different you would recommend, or are there, you know, is it still kind of the same breakdown, or I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But again, with a mix and match, like it may be less about you and more about the product. So I would kind of take the what and the how and the why and sort of elevate it closer to the beginning and emphasize it a little bit more. And we're going to be on the second page of the handout, and in the slides that I'm about to kind of just go through are some other like fill in the blank type pitches that also might be useful as templates. So there might be something in there, Amy, that you see that feels a little bit more resonant. But yeah, you're going to be spending more airtime, I would imagine, talking about the product itself, whereas these are a little more like, you know, professional, personal related. So um, I always try to answer these questions, you know, through the identity of the product, and then kind of see where that gets you. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
sure. How about you, Virginia? What's coming up for you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I'm just finding this really timely because in our weekly staff meeting, we were joined by an intern who they want to do like short videos of each of the resource coordinators, and essentially it'll be an elevator pitch. You know, it's going to be short and sweet, but I think this really gives me a framework to kind of create that script. And again, I really like the mix and match. You know, it's not linear necessarily.
Yeah, that's so great. That's really great to hear. And you know, I'm even thinking, as soon as you said video, I'm kind of thinking like, okay, 3 sentences, you know, like how can you write, it's like almost like writing all 5 sentences or all 5 answers, mixing and matching, and then probably like figuring out how to shorten it even more so that you've got like, you're kind of touching on all 5 parts just with less real estate, right? That might be important for something like in that kind of context, because videos even, I don't know. I think to me, it has to be even more to the point than conversation. There's not a lot of wiggle room, unfortunately. So that'll be a good challenge, I think. But just bring out the editing lens and see maybe how you can combine some sentences, drop some pieces, and make sure the most important parts remain.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. Well, with just thank you all so much. These sound great, and you all do such cool work too. So that certainly works in your favor when you're talking about what you do. I did want to just kind of show you, we won't spend too much time on this, but like I mentioned on the second page of the handout, there are some of these kind of fill in the blank options, and you can find more of these online. I kind of did a big scan of what's out there and tried to pick the ones that felt the most relevant, but it may help you just figure out how to stitch things together in a different way. These don't directly map to the 5 components that we're teaching today, but it does kind of get at most of it, right? So, this one is just really about, connecting with other people. It's a little less specific. But yeah, let's exchange insights on XYZ or potential collaborations, right? Or let's, I'd love to know what you think more about blah, 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 right? Like, again, I kind of underscore the importance of sort of being a generous conversationalist by inviting more conversation or asking the person in, even if you don't get it all out first, even if you don't hit every point first. So I think this one does a good job of saying some of the more important stuff, while also kind of opening up the conversation to continue. And then you have more time and space to talk about all the things, right? So this ideally is the beginning of a conversation, or at least the first part of a conversation that can pick up later. So this one, just want to make sure, yeah. So this one, again, very similar, right? I founded this business. Here's our solution for whatever in this industry. This one includes some kind of remarkable achievement. But I think about, Amy, your product or your book. I think, Katie, about, how you describe the visual timeline, right? It's almost like for both of those, I get a mental picture of what it is that you're offering. And that is so great because you're stimulating my other senses, right? If I had the cleaning product, I whip out some essential oils. And I'm like, this is what it smells like. Isn't that nice, right? So again, let's connect to discuss how we're innovating the industry. That's kind of compelling because it's kind of like, oh, are you? So I think about you, Amy, like, I'd love to tell you about how my book, does this disruptive thing, or kind of takes you on a journey, or, something evocative that sort of keeps the conversation going. Prospective customers or partners. So again, just kind of, filling in the blank here, talking about product or service. Again, that what tends to work for people in terms of complicated concepts like business models in a short period of time is this idea of problem solution. So even though it can be reductionist to kind of think that way, it can be really valuable to try to know what you want to say in that way. And then also features and benefits. So this is really kind of highlighting, what does our thing do, but how does it benefit people? Katie, you did a great job of that. Like, it's going to benefit the client, the patient, it's going to benefit the doctors, it's going to, and it's also like, I love that you brought in the fact that you're reducing re-traumatization basically of clients when they have to go through their whole medical history, which is bonkers. So this is the same kind of focus, right? And this framing is like, our success comes from our ability to do this very thing that we do, right? So it's like some of this language can be helpful because we may not feel comfortable yet sort of naming and claiming such simple, direct sentences, and sometimes it's good to just try them on and pretend and practice. And then this one's for an investor, which maybe may or may not be useful for you. But I think what's interesting about this one is it starts with a question, and I think sometimes that can be a really smart move. And kind of puts people in a situation. You have to be thoughtful about this, because if it's never happened to them, if it's not relevant or it's never happened to them, then you're going to seem a little off, or it might not resonate so much, but you're kind of setting the stage for the solution to then kind of really have a bigger impact by building up some hype behind it. I think, oh, we got one more about, yeah, trying to do some research, which may be something useful for you. But again, this one's pretty straightforward. And I think one more like that. I do think too, that just to note on this, like asking for feedback. I mean, we want to ask for feedback when we actually genuinely want it. That's really, really important. But I do think that asking people what they think or asking for their feedback can be a really engaging. People love to talk about what they think, and they love to talk about themselves, right? So even though we're thinking like, how do I deliver an elevator pitch where I talk about myself? Ugh. The reality is like other people really love to talk about themselves. So the more you can kind of meet people there, ask them what they think about what you just shared, ask them if they ever, have you ever considered hiring a professional cleaner, whatever the thing may be, like that's being, again, a really generous conversationalist, and really is going to kind of bring people into the conversation where then you can share more. So feedback is kind of one way to do that, even if it's just very light feedback, like, what do you think about that idea? Something like that. So in summary, it's almost 1 o'clock. I want to be mindful of the time. Is just the top tips for your elevator pitch. If you do these things, I think you mostly be successful in that. And the definition of success here is being able to say what you want to say and not dread it, right? Know your intention. What do you want to walk away with, right? Do you want feedback? Do you want new customer connections? Do you want work colleague, like the other business owners who you connect with and vibe with so that you can, talk about stuff, right? There's so many different kinds of intentions that you can get. So knowing what it is, having a couple different intentions might be appropriate for certain settings, and that's okay too, right? So you might just have different kind of variations of your pitch kind of in the back of your mind, ready to roll. Making sure in some way you're touching on all 5 of these points. Again, it doesn't have to be 5 distinct sentences. You can answer 3 of them in one sentence if you want to be, succinct and crafty. The mixing and the matching, just really kind of play around with the different pieces and feel what is the most genuine, easiest way for you to start. And once you start, the rest will follow, right? Trusting yourself. It's like, I just got to get this first sentence out. And once I can get the first sentence out, I can get the rest of them out, right? So whatever that first sentence is, if it's a question, if it's a, hi, I'm Claire, if it's a, have you ever thought about, whatever it is, whatever is genuine for you. And then just trying it, writing it down, saying it out loud, realizing how awkward it sounds out loud, rewriting it, practicing with your cat, going to the thing, trying it on. In certain settings, it's really safe to ask for feedback about how the pitch went, if you, with certain kinds of folks. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. Like, was that clear? Was there anything you would change? Did that go well for you? So that's my my recommendation. Hopefully you have something with this handout that you can kind of use and play with and work with. Ultimately, what feels good to say is going to feel good to receive to the people that you're talking to, and that's the biggest takeaway, right? You being able to be genuine and being authentic is going to be the thing that actually creates connections, as well as having interesting things to say. But much more than that is your comfort level and you being genuinely yourself, and you will find the right people and screw everybody else. We'll take that out of the recording, but like, if they're not the right people, they're not the right people. Move on. You don't have to be engaging with folks in your business and in your business networking that aren't your people. That's something I feel really passionate about. There's enough of us to find each other and to feel good and be supported with folks that are the right fit. So don't compromise on that, and you'll find the right community. You'll keep building your community. That's what I got. Any other follow-up questions or anything anybody would like to say?
No, thanks, Claire. This was this is very helpful.
Good.
Yeah, I like
Awesome.
I liked the different formats. That was helpful to see, like the starting with a question thing. I did that just naturally last night when it felt like someone needed a little more understanding.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, I thought that was cool to see all the different,
Yeah.
the different ideas.
Well, and the question thing is really interesting when you're and this might be true for Amy too, when you're talking about something that people also may not like, you, Katie, have to do some education around your business. But if people haven't had the experience, don't have, chronic
Right.
issues or pain, right? You'd be like, you could say things like, could you imagine that if you had this condition and you had multiple practitioners and you had to explain, something like that, like,
Mhm.
where it's an educational piece for folks who have the privilege of not having that experience. So yeah, that's great.
That's it.
Yeah, right on. Well, thank you all. I hope you enjoy this beautiful weekend ahead. Thanks for spending this time with us. It means a lot, and good luck to you all. Hope to stay connected in the future. Come back.